Hi and welcome. This is Jerry Bridge. Welcome to the presentation, If Healthcare is About Well-Being, Why Am I So Stressed Out? Special edition, Principles and Practices for Dramatically Increasing Your Well-Being in the Face of Stress and Uncertainty. First, let me just say that while I would have much preferred to present this program live and in person, and I'm sure you'd be happy to be in the program with your fellow attendees, unfortunately, we're not able to do that. And as a background for listening to what I have to say, I do want to encourage you to watch my previously recorded live events of this presentation. You can find those embedded on the slides 8 and 30 in the slide deck. And so for right now, I just invite you to make yourself comfortable, relax, and to fully engage with the information I'm presenting. For those of you that haven't seen me speak before, let me go ahead and introduce myself and give you a sense of my background and the intention of the program. All right, so a little bit about my background. So it really is along two tracks. One is over 30 years experience doing education and training to and for the healthcare industry primarily. On a number of different issues, from practice management to people development and everything in between. And then I combine that experience with a lifelong commitment to personal development, personal professional development through Landmark Education, which is a worldwide educational program that produces really profound and lasting differences in the quality of our relationships, communication, productivity, well-being, and life fulfillment. So I'm bringing all that to the table in this presentation. Personally, I live on the central coast of California in a little town called Nipomo, just about 1 hour north of Santa Barbara. And I live there with my wife, Joy, and my two red tabby cats, Stan and Ollie. So that's enough about me. Let's get into the program. Okay, here are some resources that I highly recommend that you download and review. The top two, the first two, the Wellbeing Playbook. It's a 45-page workbook that covers everything from brain function, habits, diet, nutrition, dealing with electronic devices. And there's places, it's an interactive book, so it's a way to put into practice what we're teaching today. Now, the other thing that I'd like you to look at is the video, If Healthcare is About Well-Being, Why Am I So Stressed Out? That was filmed not that long ago in Kansas that I did with a group of healthcare practitioners. And so that'll give you, I think, greater context and deeper understanding of what it is that I'm sharing today. Okay, moving on. The intention of this program to offer principles and practices for dramatically increasing your well-being in the face of stress and uncertainty. So what do we mean by principles? Well, according to Cambridge Dictionary Online, they define principle as a basic idea or rule that explains or controls how something happens or works. For example, what is the organizing principle for flight or flying? That would be aerodynamics. Aerodynamics is the underlying physics of lift, drag, and weight, for example, that make flight possible. Similarly, whether we know it or not, as human beings, our thoughts, feelings, and actions are given by certain organizing principles, the understanding of which gives us access to new ways of being and acting. So in this presentation, I'm going to share with you, and we're going to distinguish two of those principles that are all designed to leave you empowered in the face of stress and uncertainty. We'll also talk about and review some practices that will help you in getting the most out of the program. The pandemic, uncertainty, and well-being. In the face of the pandemic and the uncertainty it brings, you're very likely feeling a wide range of emotions, anywhere from fear, anger, numbness, sadness, or even depression. You also may be feeling a certain kind of freedom or a break from the routine or a new kind of possibility in the face of what we're all dealing with. You could also be experiencing physical sensations and other reactions, like I mentioned, stress, anxiety, nausea, depression, headaches, body pains, deep insecurities, resignation, trouble sleeping, binge eating or drinking. So for many of us, myself included, the pandemic has shifted the way I think about my life and what's important. And it's been a time to refocus on what I value most in life. And for me, my life and livelihood has been based on my ability to present live and in-person keynotes for large groups. I've been doing that for 30 years. So most of my work for this year has been either canceled or rescheduled. And the future is uncertain as to whether or not, or even if I'll be able to do the thing that I love doing the most for most of my career. In fact, even in the process of working on this presentation, it's uncovered intense feelings of anxiety and profound insecurity. And it's just left me uncertain and breathless at times. Now, on the flip side of that, I've also been present to a deep and abiding appreciation for the life I have, the people in my life, my work, my health, my pleasures and joys, and all the things that I normally take for granted. So if you're feeling any of that, that's exactly what you should be feeling. And you're in exactly the right place to listen to this presentation and to be in this conversation. Now, we're not the first human beings to experience a pandemic, and it's completely predictable that we won't be the last. So to give you some context for kind of the time we're living in now, I'm going to share with you on the next slide the paper that C.S. Lewis wrote called On Living in an Atomic Age. He wrote that in 1948 when the atomic bomb was perceived as a real threat. It actually is a real threat to humanity. Lewis is best known for some of the works that you may be familiar with, including The Chronicles of Narnia, and was a fellow novelist with J.R.R. Tolkien. Okay. On Living in an Atomic Age, C.S. Lewis. In one way, we think a great deal too much of the atomic bomb. How are we to live in an atomic age? I am tempted to reply, why, as you would have lived in the 16th century when the plague visited London almost every year, or as you would have lived in a Viking age when raiders from Scandinavia might land and cut your throat any night, or indeed, as you are already living in an age of cancer, an age of syphilis, an age of paralysis, an age of air raids, an age of railway accidents, an age of motor accidents. It is perfectly ridiculous to go about whimpering and drawing long faces because the scientists have added one more chance of painful and premature death to a world which already bristled with such chances and which death itself was not a chance at all, but a certainty. This is the first point to be made, and the first action to be taken is to pull ourselves together. If we are all going to be destroyed by an atomic bomb or a pandemic, let that bomb, when it comes, find us doing sensible and human things. Praying, working, teaching, reading, listening to music, bathing the children, playing tennis, chatting to our friends over a pint and a game of darts. Not huddled together like frightened sheep and thinking about bombs. They may break our bodies, a microbe can do that, but they need not dominate our minds. So where to start? Start from exactly where you are, with exactly how you're feeling and with exactly what's going on with you. You can only get anywhere from where you are anyway, so that is the place to start. You want to be open and come from not knowing some of the stuff that I'll be sharing with you, you may have heard before or have concepts about, and see if you can just open yourself up to engage with the materials like an adventure, like an exploration into a new possibility for yourself. And if they fit and work for you, great. And if not, you can just let them go. So we're talking about improving your well-being and reducing your stress. So what do we mean by well-being? Here's a definition that I think kind of gets at it a bit. The quality or condition of mental, physical, emotional, or spiritual existence, a state characterized by health, happiness, fulfillment, and self-expression. So on the next slide, let's drill down a little bit so we can get that to land powerfully in your life and how that might show up for you. So what value would you like to take away from this presentation? In order to do that, you want to look into your life right now and think about specific areas of concern around increasing well-being or reducing stress. Consider your body, your physical health, your nutrition, your stamina, vitality, and energy. Consider your mental, emotional state, having a greater capacity to be present, to focus, to have patience, to take life as it comes, to simply relax and enjoy your life. And then there's your self-expression, pursuing activity or engaging with your passions and desires around art, music, cooking, dancing, writing, and so on. All those go toward your well-being. Okay, now just in case you haven't taken the time to look into your life and to write down a few of the stress challenges or well-being challenges that you may have, I really, really want you to go ahead and do that now. You can refer to pages 8, 9, and 10 in the playbook for inspiration and additional ideas. But just, again, look into your life. Maybe it's just moving your body more, going for walks and so on, losing weight, building muscle, eating healthier, practicing mindfulness and meditation, or doing the thing that you used to love doing or still love doing and want to continue to do or do more. So go ahead and do that, and that will be the roadmap for you, or that will give you the information that you need to work on what you're working on. Okay, great. So how's this program going to work? How are the materials relevant, and how will they make a difference? Well, you and I have ways of being and acting with what we're dealing with and feeling stressed or overwhelmed about. And our ways of being, thinking, and actions can either leave us disempowered, ineffective, and hopeless, or they can leave us empowered, effective, and looking forward. Now, there's nothing I'm going to say or could say, even if it were possible, that's going to alter the circumstances of our lives right now. The nature of the work presented in this program is organized and dedicated to what works, what will empower you in the face of what you're dealing with. The principles and practices are presented because they work, not because they're the right principles or the truth. You might agree with them, you might disagree with them, doesn't matter, it's all okay. What we're interested in is giving you access to power and freedom in the face of what you're dealing with. So here are the two primary principles that we're dealing with in this presentation: the paradox of uncertainty, the fundamental nature of thoughts and feelings. The paradox of uncertainty. It is true that our current circumstances and situations and the future we imagine for ourselves is now palpably and unavoidably more uncertain. And it's also true that life for human beings has always been uncertain. Whether it's automobile accidents, weather-related disasters, cancers, health issues, and so on. We live life like life should be certain, or I should be certain, or that if I could just be certain, then I'd feel secure, less fearful, and free to act. Here's the critical, but maybe not so obvious point. When you can accept, allow for, grant being to, or even embrace the notion that at the heart of being human is the fact that life itself is inherently and fundamentally uncertain. And at the moment of granting being to the fundamental uncertainty that life presents, you are then empowered to be with any uncertainty in the circumstances of life. In fact, the one thing you can absolutely be certain about is there is no certainty. So as long as we're living like, life should be a certain way, we should be certain, I should be certain, there should be no pandemic, and so on and so forth, we're not grounded in reality. And that leads to a lot of mischief and upsets and nonsense. And until we can deal with life as it actually is, that it's fundamentally uncertain, then we're not grounded and empowered. Okay, so what can you see now? So on this slide, I've posed 4 questions to get you to really begin to see how living life like it should be certain, or like you should be certain, is impacting your well-being and adding to your stress. So you can go through the questions. We'll just pick a couple. Have you been relating to uncertainty and not knowing in life like I should be certain or life should be certain? And what is the impact of that on your well-being? When you're living inconsistent or not aligned with, the fundamental nature of living, which is life is uncertain. You might also want to look at some of the value and benefits that you've written down with regard to exercise or pursuit of hobbies that you love or once loved, those kinds of things that just expand your life and just make you feel better, frankly. And how would living life align with the fundamental principle that life is uncertain? What new possibilities does that open up for you now with regard to any uncertainty that you might face in the future and with regard to what's important to you regarding your well-being? So just go ahead and mull that over. If you were doing this program with another person, have a conversation back and forth and share what's opening up for you and what you can see now. Okay, on to the next one. All right, so we're about to get into the second principle, which is the fundamental nature of thoughts and feelings. Before we do that, I wanted to share this quote from one of the books that I absolutely love called Buddha's Brain regarding human language, thoughts, and feelings. And I am not a brain scientist or researcher, but I've read enough about brain function to kind of get, wrap my arms around, how does having a healthy brain, impact my well-being and my stress levels? So, and how is human language different than, say, when I'm relating to my cats and I have to, yell at my cat, what's the difference there? And the difference there is the cat doesn't hold any resentments. They just, do what they do and they go on to the next thing. But human beings were different. So it says only we humans worry about the future, regret the past, and blame ourselves for the present. We suffer that we suffer. We get upset about being in pain, angry about dying, sad about waking up sad yet another day. This kind of suffering is constructed by the brain and exists in human language, and it's made up. And if the brain, if the brain, that is the quality of our thinking, is the cause of suffering, it can also be the cure. So let's get into it. Okay, so the fundamental nature of thoughts. Now, according to the National Science Foundation, an average person has about 12,000 to 60,000 thoughts per day. Of those, 80% are negative and 95% are repetitive. Our experience of well-being and our actions are given by a never-ending cascade of mostly negative thinking. Now, you are not your thoughts. That's that little voice in your head. If you were your thoughts, you could stop thinking, and you can't stop thinking. Notice you just have another thought like, okay, I'm not thinking. That's just another thought. Or what little voice is he talking about? Or I don't hear anything. And again, the point is, given that most of our thoughts and thinking is negative, and that we are that little voice in our head, it's no wonder we feel fearful, stressed, anxious, or depressed. See if you can see this for yourself. Just map it onto your own life. For me, for example, no matter how hard I work or how much I accomplish, the thought in my head, the repetitive thought in my head is, yeah, but you could have done more, or I'm no good, or I'm too good, or what's wrong with me, or what's wrong with them, or I should fill in the blank. Those thoughts come, they're never ending, and they impact our well-being. For greater context and deeper understanding, I'd like to read a quote from Presence, Exploring Profound Change in People, Organizations, and Society. Thinking is like a waterfall. You look at a waterfall and you just see water coming down, like a curtain of water. Waterfall is really composed of water droplets. Thinking is the same. Our mind runs so rapidly that we perceive our thinking as if it's a waterfall. If you're aware, if you're able to stop, you know by direct experience that thinking is just tiny drops. Thoughts change every moment, every second. We're always being cheated by our thoughts, taking them as reality. Stopping begins to occur spontaneously as soon as we are able to see our thoughts. Before stopping, our goals and aims are more likely to reflect the past rather than what's really needed now. Okay, here's the critical but not so obvious point. Most of us have almost no capacity to observe our thoughts as thoughts. Instead, we take them as reality, and we don't know that we do that. As you begin to observe and distinguish the cascade of random thoughts from generative thinking, you'll have the space to choose well-being over suffering and effective action over reaction. And so having thoughts is very distinct from creative generative thinking. Most of us have almost no capacity to distinguish our thoughts from that kind of thinking. And the quality of our experience and our well-being is a function of the quality of our thinking, and therefore our ability to distinguish random, mostly negative thoughts from creative generative thinking. Okay, so let's talk about feelings. The principal nature of feelings. You can't change your feelings. Try feeling happy when you're sad. When you're happy, you're happy. When you're sad, you're sad. Period. And we're nutty about our feelings. We hide them, we assign meaning to them, we pretend that we don't feel what we feel. And if you can simply acknowledge what you're authentically feeling, if you can get present to that, you're no longer dominated by or stuck with that emotion. You will then experience the space and the freedom to simply be. Trying to change your feelings at any given moment is like trying to change your age or your height. You can't do it. Rather, allowing yourself to feel what you're feeling and being with that and staying in action on what matters most is an access to power and freedom and greater well-being. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce a practice to interrupt the incessant flow of negative thinking that impacts our well-being, and that is observe, stop, choose. So the first step is observation. It's really simply, maybe not so simply, but noticing whatever thoughts or feelings are present. And when you notice that your thoughts or feelings are detrimental to your well-being, or that your stress is increasing, then stop. You're starting to go down the rabbit hole. You're starting to feel the adrenaline pumping, or you're getting upset, or you're consuming, too much negativity either on television or in what you're reading, or, it's just upsetting to you. Your well-being is being diminished, and you stop. And the moment you become aware of thoughts and feelings that use you, you're a choice. You have power. That is to say, you have a say in the matter of thinking and action. And for me, it really works like this. I've been in a relationship with my wife for 20 years. We love each other, 80, 90% of the time, we're getting along fine. But like any couple, we have certain areas of our life where there's recurring upsets, whether it's around, house cleaning or driving or whatever it is. And it was the other night, and even in the midst of my working on this presentation, which is always ironic, something happened between us. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I was really upset and I was really angry. And it's all I wanted to do was just take my marbles and, go to bed, without dinner. And it would have just been horrible. And so I went back to work on this presentation. I thought, okay, Jerry, how are you feeling right now? I felt really upset. I felt angry, and thoughts like, I hate her. And I said, okay, well, how do I really want this evening to go? And I just got myself up out of my chair. I walked back into the kitchen and I said, here's what I'm committed to about how I'm going to be tonight. And I'm going to be committed to, that we have a great evening, we have a great dinner together, and then we're going to watch the movie that we said we were going to watch. And it was like having a say in the matter. I didn't feel like I wanted to do that. She didn't particularly feel, any affinity towards me, and she was willing to kind of get off it with me. But that's really how it works. It's not a one-time phenomenon. Observing our thinking and observing our feelings takes rigor, it takes discipline, it takes a commitment to, living a life, of well-being. And it was really out of that commitment that I was able to see what was using me in the moment, to stop it and to choose another path. So you want to take a look in your life, where are there recurring upsets and patterns that leave you feeling diminished in your well-being and increase your stress, and that's where to do the work. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's definitely worth it. Okay, so let's review the principles that we've covered so far. And how are you doing, by the way? Are you engaged with this? Are you sticking with it? Is it opening up any new possibilities for you in terms of your commitment to your own well-being, decreasing stress, and acting on the things that are most important to you? All right, so let's see what we've got here. So review of principles. We live like life is certain, and it's not. It never was, and it never will be. When we can fully embrace the way life is, we're grounded in reality and free to be and act effectively in the face of any uncertainty that shows up. We take our thoughts as reality. The quality of our lives and our well-being are impacted by incessant, ever-present, mostly negative thoughts. It's amazing what happens when you start really engaging with this principle. As I've been working on this hours and hours and hours and going over and over and over again, I'm really noticing just how many of my own thoughts and the people that I'm relating to and around me, just the quality of what those thoughts are, not like bad, not like they shouldn't be, but just really noticing it and not going down with the ship and, kind of staying present to what I'm committed to. It's really making a difference. We think we're having thoughts, and if that were true, you could stop having thoughts. You can't. Consider the possibility that your thoughts are having you. I'm not saying that's true. I'm not saying that's not true. Consider the possibility that you are used by your thinking and see what opens up for you. And as you develop the capacity to observe, stop, and choose your thinking, the quality of your life and well-being will increase naturally. And then regarding feelings, feelings ebb and flow. They come and go. Human beings, like I said, we're nutty about our feelings. We're always trying to change how we feel in one way or another. And in order to not get stuck and experience freedom, you want to get present to what you're actually feeling. Allow it to be exactly as it is. And the moment you're present to and allowing your feelings to be as they are, they disappear for you as a problem. All right, moving on. All right, so here are some additional practices. And when we're talking about practices, we really mean just that. You know, you will fall, you will fail, you're human. You know, there's an expression that practice makes perfect. Well, I don't know that we're ever going to be perfect. Whatever that notion is, I think sets us up to, feel bad when we, when there's a breakdown or when we're upset, and then we feel bad about feeling bad, like we referred to on that slide before. So you just want to hold it that, you're human, having self-compassion. And there is some discipline required. You got to be able to give your word and be in action. But at some point, what I can promise you is the more you're in action on the kinds of things and pursuits that make you feel better and increase your well-being and decrease your stress, they will really work on you. You won't have to work at it so hard over time. So let's get into it. One of the most powerful and effective and scientifically proven practices that you can do to increase your well-being and reduce your stress is the practice of meditation and mindfulness. You can use those words interchangeably. And when we're talking about mindfulness, we've already talked about, how much our minds are filled with negative thinking, and we're predisposed to repetitive negative behaviors and thought patterns. And then we wonder why, our well-being is diminished, or why we're so upset and reactive. And so mindfulness is really taking the time in a relaxed sort of environment and in a relaxed way to focus our attention inward on our breath, our mind, our body, and to sort of allow ourselves to get clear and then be filled with gratitude, be filled with, space and a sense of freedom, and to release all that negativity. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. So you want to get into, a relaxed position, and maybe in a quiet place. You can do this if you're doing this with a friend who's listening with you. I invite you to go ahead and participate together. Okay, so let's get ready to put mindfulness into practice. I have a little bit of spa music on in the background, and so hopefully that will help you to sort of get relaxed and let go a little bit. You want to get into a comfortable position where you can relax and maybe remove any, turn your cell phone off or close the door. And if you can get into a quiet place, that would be great. And just take a couple of deep breaths. And as you do that, just feel yourself relaxing ever more and allow your eyes to close. This practice will take less than 10 minutes. So go ahead and get into a comfortable position, uncross your arms and legs. As I say, take some deep breaths. And what I'd like you to do as you do that is to feel the weight of your body against the chair you're sitting on, or the floor or the bed you're lying on. Take long, slow, deep breaths. Inhale deeply, very, very deeply. And I will do this with you. I'll be leading the meditation, and I'll be also doing it with you. As you go through your body, notice any aches or pains, tightness in the chest, stress or anxiety. Keep taking deep breaths and allow yourself to be ever more and fully relaxed. Now become aware of your thinking. Simply observe any thoughts you're having. Don't try to change them. Just notice whatever thoughts come up as you continue to relax. Just let them be there. Feeling ever more relaxed, ever more calm. Just observing whatever's going on with you, whatever thoughts you might be having. And now what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to turn your attention to the notion of how you think life should be. What should or should not be happening? What you should or should not be feeling or doing with your time. And just notice whatever comes to mind. What the government should or should not be doing, what the politicians should or should not be doing. Just notice if you have any opinion or thoughts or shoulds about that. Notice your opinions and reactions to all that thinking about how it should be right now. Notice any meaning that you attach to that thinking. Notice how attached or not attached you are in the matter of all that thinking and the circumstances of your life and how life should be. Just notice that. Now I'd like you to entertain the idea that all that thinking and all those thoughts do not belong to you. There are 7.8 billion people on the planet, and I'd like you to imagine how many of those nearly 8 billion people are having similar thoughts and feelings about how life should be, about how you should be, and how the circumstances of your life should be. Billions of people, billions of human beings are tuned into how life should be radio. And for many of us, we've been tuned in so long, we actually forgot we're listening. See if you can let all that go, all that thinking and all those thoughts and meaning you ascribe to how life should be. See if you can allow all that thinking to be exactly as it is, thoughts, and let them all go. Feeling ever more relaxed, taking deep breaths, letting it all go, letting it all go, letting it all go. Now what I'd like you to do is to imagine a life in which you experience extraordinary well-being, productivity, and accomplishment. Just imagine that in mind, in body, and in spirit. Allow yourself to be fully present to that experience. What does that feel like? Are you feeling lighter in being? Just letting it all go? Who's there with you? Family, friends, coworkers, perhaps? As you allow yourself to be having the experience of extraordinary well-being, productivity, and accomplishment, what are you doing? Perhaps some activities that you haven't participated in, that you've thought about doing, loves, hobbies, passions. Just see that in your mind's eye and see the faces of the people that you're with. And just allow yourself to fully be in that experience. Really be in it as a presence. And feel what that's like. Okay, very good. We're nearing the end of this meditation practice. So I'd like you to take a few more deep breaths all the way down and exhale slowly. And with each breath, I'd like you to feel ever more relaxed. And now what I'd like you to do is to open your eyes. And I'd like you to notice now if you feel a bit more relaxed and well, And if you do, this is the power of mindfulness in action, generating positive, creative thoughts and quality thinking. And the more you practice, the more present you'll be to the positive effects of mindfulness in restoring well-being. Well, I feel pretty relaxed after having played back and just listened to that meditation. And so I'm wondering what you can see now and how you're feeling after the mindfulness practice. I feel a lot more relaxed. I do feel a greater sense of well-being, and like I've just got more space to be with all this that's going on in the world and in my life. And so just take a look now in light of the benefits that you wrote down earlier. What impact or impacts do you think practicing mindfulness will have, and how it will set you up to give you a greater ability to observe and choose quality thinking over reactivity and negativity. So go ahead and use that workbook or a piece of paper. Just write that down. And once again, I really recommend that you share that with another person so you can expand the value for yourself. All right. All right, so here are 3 more suggested practices for increasing well-being. We're getting near the end, and being talked to death is a terrible death. So these are just 3 things that I've been doing that have made a difference for me, and see if they map onto you. First is just manage your consumption of news and negativity. Human beings, we love the car crash. And, when I'm watching the news now, you can't help but see the death counts resulting from the pandemic. I'm not saying that you should never watch it, but just, watch and see and notice if it's too much for you and if it kind of, makes you go down the rabbit hole with stress and anxiety. And so you want to stop that. You might want to keep a journal. I've kept a journal for years. It helped me when I was going through health issues with my family, and then I was subsequently wrote a book about my experiences with that, and it really made a difference in terms of writing down my thoughts and feelings and giving me some space, to see beyond it and not be so dominated about what I was thinking and feeling on a daily basis or even an hourly basis. So you might want to do that. And then, take care of your body. It's the only one you got. Take care of your brain, your body. Take it out for a walk. It's what it wants to do. As I exercise and I go for walks with my wife, and we consciously take, long, slow, deep breaths, I'm reminded how now we're, living through this pandemic in which so many people are in the ICU department right now on ventilators that can no longer breathe for themselves. So I just am, honoring those that can't and those that are on the front lines, the healthcare workers working so hard to care for people. For me, taking care of myself is maybe one less person that they've got to look after. So I'm going to do everything I can to be well, to take care of myself, to eat well, and to do all that supports my well-being and reduces my stress. So in order for you to keep the benefits and value alive for yourself and your commitment to expanding your well-being, increasing your well-being, and reducing stress, here's a form on page 44 of the Well-Being Playbook, and where you can list some of the activities that you are going to do, whether it's walking, jogging, biking, activities to support your emotional well-being, keeping a journal of your feelings, writing those down so that you can observe them and see how they ebb and flow, your spiritual well-being, mindfulness practices, or perhaps your new food plan, whatever it is. And you can make up your own form. It doesn't matter. This is just one that I made up. And then you can also go ahead to make it real for yourself by signing it. So I stand for a future in which I am well physically, emotionally, and spiritually. As a way of accomplishing this, I promise to take action, get support, and or schedule the things I've written above. By making the commitment to take better care of myself now, I'll be more able and effective at caring for my family, patients, and coworkers. You may not have patients, but you know what I'm saying. And then go ahead and sign it, share this with family and friends, and let them know what you're up to. Make it real. And that's the point of it. All right. Okay, so what can you expect now that we've taken this 45 minutes or so and laid out the principles that life is fundamentally uncertain, and the degree to which we can align ourselves with that fundamental principle is the degree to which we can be grounded in reality and be more powerful in the face of any uncertainty that we face. The principle that our thoughts and feelings ebb and flow, they're predominantly negative and repetitive, and that in order to interrupt that flow, we have to be able to expand our capacity to observe them, to stop them, and to choose new possibilities for ourselves. So if you engage with those principles, you will find new ways naturally of acting and being in the face of whatever you're dealing with, whatever levels of stress and anxiety that you're dealing with. And the more you practice, the more you'll benefit. It's just the way it works. And it's not perfect. As I said earlier, you will fail, you will fall. That's the nature of being human for human beings. The question is, will you get back up? Will you, resume the practices? Will you, review the materials, whatever materials there are, whether it's this presentation, other books that you read, whatever it is that pulls you towards well-being, that's what you want to do. And the more you do it, the way that it works is you won't have to use it. There should be no struggle or effort in it. If you're efforting at this, that ain't it. You want to be able to participate. You want to be able to experience a life filled with accomplishment, full self-expression, and well-being as your natural self-expression. And so the more you practice, the more life will occur for you just like that. So I want to thank you for taking the time to listen and engage with the material and the information presented. I welcome your feedback, and I look forward to seeing you at an upcoming conference in the near future. Please do not hesitate to reach out if you need anything at all. There's my email address and there's my direct line. And again, thank you. Stay safe and be well.